What if achievement itself was never the problem? What if it's what you asked it to prove? You hit the goal, the revenue number, the title, the book deal, the stage, and the relief lasted about 11 minutes before the emptiness crept back in. If that's familiar, I want you to hear this. Welcome to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. I am Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and I am an emotional freedom guide and founder of the I Am the Light Sanctuary. We're beginning a brand new series this month, Why Everything Feels Empty. Today, we're talking about why achievement stops feeling like enough and what it's actually asking for instead. Here's what most high-achieving women think when a goal doesn't land the way they expected. I did something wrong. I must have picked the wrong goal. Maybe I need a bigger one. So they set a bigger one, they chase it, they hit it, and feel the same 11 minutes of relief before the emptiness creeps back in. You don't have an ambition problem. You have a proving problem. And it never actually resolves because it was never asked to be resolved with an achievement in the first place. Achievement was never designed to fill this. It was built to prove something, usually to someone who isn't even in the room anymore. A parent, a teacher, a version of yourself at 12 years old who learned that being impressive was safer than being seen. So you achieve, and it works for a minute. The applause lands, the number hits, the title changes. And then quietly, your nervous system starts scanning for the next thing to prove. What is your next goal actually trying to prove? And to whom? I want to talk about my books because this is the thing that should have made a big difference in my life, and it didn't. When I was asked in 2008 to move to Chicago to write the books, I'm like, okay, so I went. No big deal. What ended up happening is during that whole process of writing the books, it was all pretty much like a diary of my life during that year of all the things that were changing and shifting and what I was waking up to, what I was realizing, and how I felt in the process. And I kept thinking that the book is going to be doing something different. It's going someplace else. I didn't know where it was going or what it was going to be doing, but I just kept writing the book and moving forward. Now, this was pretty much a 3-year journey because it ended in 2011 when my mother passed away. And when I found the editor, I was told that it was going to be a trilogy. That's what Spirit told me. The books were going to be a trilogy. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, whatever. And it was, because the volume of the manuscript warranted it to be a trilogy. So, why argue with Spirit when they tell you something? Because they're usually right and you're not. And when I finally got the first book, I liked the first book because it was like the fun, happy book is how I describe it. It's the fun, happy thing when Spirit comes in and you're like, oh, everything's so cool and look at all the magic and look at all this. And when that book became an multiple award-winning book, I thought something was like, these people just have no clue. Because in my mind, see, I lived this experience and it didn't feel good to me. And I didn't really like it, and I didn't think anything of it because it was like, I just need to get on to the next thing because I didn't feel good about it. And people would be like all excited that they became an award winner or that they were a bestseller. And I felt nothing. It was completely empty to me. I didn't understand why. I just went on to whatever the next thing was. And then I spent several years trying to get the second book. Now, I hated the second book because that's the dark part starting to come in. That's where, as the light enters your body, you start going deeper into yourself. You start seeing the darkness. And that's why it's called the dark night of the soul, because this is the beginning phase of what the dark night of the soul was. And I really hated that book. I didn't want this book to come out for anything, but it was part of this journey that I was on, and I knew it needed it to come on. And so when I decided it was time to get the second book out, I called my editor and I said, I asked her first of all to write the back cover because she was a genius at that. And then I said, I just really can't stand this book and I don't know how to fix it. I don't know what's wrong with it, but it's like after all these years, and we are talking, the book was finished in 2011. It was, I think, 2021 when I put the book out, or 2020, somewhere in there. And I just said, I don't know how to resolve this book. She looked at it. She did whatever she did. I don't know what she did. I really, truly don't. But all of a sudden, the book was okay. And I went out and I applied. I submitted the books for award winning, and I'm thinking nobody's going to like this book. It's not going to be a number one, and it's not going to award anything. And I was on the phone with a friend of mine, and normally I don't do two things at once, but for some reason I saw this and it was like, oh, I wonder what this is. And I started screaming and she's like, what? And I said, I've been an international award winning on my second book. And she's all excited. And I was all excited because I did not expect to win anything on that book. Nothing. I didn't expect anything. And it was so shocking because to me, this book was so hard and it's so personal. And somebody thought it was worth winning an award. And I'm like, whoa. And instead of not responding to it and just going on to the next, I was like, Kath, you really need to sit down and be with this one for the first time. You need to really embrace this, because I was doing a lot of mind work at that point. I had a coach going on. I was in David Bear's group thing, coaching, whatever it was, legendary. And, and I told people and they were all excited. I was excited because this felt so different to me. For the first time in my life, this felt very, very different. And then I thought, okay, well, I'm going to try to go for being a bestseller. So I did that in 5-6 months later, I went for a number one bestseller and I hit it. And I was shocked because I really never expected anyone to want to read this book or that it would be worth anything like that. And I really embraced that because for the first time in my life, I realized that I didn't have to accomplish anything to be worthy of anything, that I was already worthy, and that what I did, that it was a recognition for something that I did, because writing a book is not easy. It's not. It's time consuming. How many times you feel like you've got this, block going on. You don't know where you're going with it. You're kind of following it. How are you developing the characters? There's a lot that goes into it. And then there's the editing that goes into it. And then there's the book covers that go into it. And, and I remember my editor saying, well, you think the book is done now that the hard part's over? She said, it's not, it's just beginning, because marketing is where the real work comes in. And she's absolutely right about that. Because at that time, I'm like, no, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Because this book was so hard on me. And she's right. But see, it's different now. And it's taken me, I'm 20 years past when I wrote the book, so pretty close to it, 18 years. And I see the book's totally different than what I did when I was in it. And I lived it. And it was very painful because it was the beginning of my waking up. It was the beginning of my remembering. It was the beginning of me realizing that I had a value, that I was worthy, that I was deserving. And I was doing things to prove that I was good enough just the way I was and where I was. And I was around people that seemed to accept me in ways that I felt like I had never been accepted for before. And that really surprised me too. So there was a lot going on. And even though I talked about a lot of things, it's now in the reflection. And I can still go back there and remember that. And I remember Spirit telling me also that these books were a manual and these are going to be something that people are going to come back to over and over. And when they asked me, I think after all 3 books were published, they said, sit down and read the books again. Okay, so I did. And they're easy reads. They're really easy reads. So I sat down and I read it and was like, oh, this is different. It's not like I didn't remember anything. It was like I was seeing things differently. I was coming from a different perspective. And then they asked me to read them again, and I did. And I found a totally different answer, and I had a totally different experience in the books. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how Spirit does this, but these books literally are, if you need something, you're going to go to the page that you need it, and whatever it is will be there for you. And that's what it was showing me, and that's what was going on for me in that process. But I still hadn't totally 100% embraced everything on it yet, because I'm still an overachiever. There are some things that are never going to change. And I own that I am still an overachiever. I will always be an overachiever because it's a pattern that I can't break. But see what it is, what the difference is now is I know I am. And I know when I'm obsessing, and I know when I need to stop doing that for myself. That's the advantage of understanding, because see, my thing is, you tell me how to do something. If I want to do it, I will do it, but hold my hand for at least 5 minutes so I can get off the ground, because there's nothing worse than paying somebody. And I get tired of this too. You pay somebody all this money to help you get to where you go, and you get through it. And then it's like, okay, now you're on your own. You're off. And you're like, well, what do I do now? I completed the course, but what do I do? And that's the thing that really got to me the most, is feeling abandoned and then not knowing. And I was being drilled yesterday by a woman, and it was perfect because she's trying to understand something. And I just said, I'm just tired of, you spend all this money, you're buying somebody's name with spending the money, and then they just throw you to the wolves. And I said, because it's like, now what? I don't know what to do next, because I didn't learn the skill. I learned how to do something, but I didn't learn the skill behind it. I didn't know how to take that next step, or what that next step actually was. Because in concept, you can understand it, but in reality, you can't, because you've got this head trash that goes on. So then the overachiever comes back in, and it's like, you know what? I'm just going to go someplace else and do something different, because I don't know, and maybe someday I'll figure this out, and then I can move on from there. It's what we do. So instead of thinking I'm a failure, because, we want to be overachievers because we don't want that sense of failure that's going on with us, because we feel that way, especially when we've done this and spent the money and we should know better, and we don't. And it just sucks. So I realized at that point, at that moment, and I was just going on about how I'm such an overachiever yesterday, and I'm proud of it. Because it's not that I'm just an overachiever. There's also a mission that I have. There's something that I'm here to do that I want to do, and I really want to make that happen in my life. That's part of the overachiever, but it's not all of it. There's a drive, and some of us have, excuse me, coughing on my words again. Some of us have this really strong sense of drive, and I know overachieving is part of that drive. Part of what happened to us in our childhood is part of that drive. And it's about finding where you are in that. It's okay if you want to be an overachiever. It's okay if you want to prove something to yourself, not to the world, to you. But you also need to know that you're okay just the way you are. And that's a hard place to get to. Excuse me. And I think what I realized yesterday is that I'm really okay with where I am. because I've done enough deep healing and what I need to do and what I want to do to help people not be where I've been. I'm doing the deep work, and most people will never do the deep work that I've done to the depth that I've gone. But what I can show them is that if you do this work, there's a sense of peace in your beingness that you've never felt. There's a sense of, I really am okay, just the way I am. There's a sense of understanding your place, whatever that is, and whatever that means to you. You understand things that you've never understood or felt before. And that's what I want people to understand, because we're crazy in this world. This world is insane right now. But we're not this world. We, inside of this being, this body, is our world. And if we can bring peace and tranquility and happiness and joy inside this when there's all this chaos out here, that says something, because that's you remembering who you are. That's you remembering that you're valuable for who you are. You're here on this planet for a reason. And that's enough. We don't have to be the next Bill Gates or the Steve Jobs. We don't have to be those next people. Because who we are within the world that we created for ourselves, you matter to somebody. If it's a parent, if it's your family, your kids, your spouse, your friends, it doesn't matter. You are somebody important to those people in your life. We're not above, we're not beneath. We're equal. We may look different, we may think differently, we may have different ways we handle things. That's okay. Because that's where acceptance comes from. That's where tolerance comes from. So when I went for, because right now I'm a multi-winner on my third book. And this book is even darker than the second book. And yet I'm a multi-award-winning author on that book. So 3 books already. And I'm really proud of that now. I'm really proud of this, of something that was so hard. And I was validated. I was validated. I put myself out there when I was terrified to do it, and I was validated for the hard work that I did, that there's people who read those books that thought they were worthy to win an award and to become a #1 bestseller. The only book left to become a #1 bestseller is the 3rd one, and that is probably going to be this fall when I go after that one to become an award winner again. And that is something to be very, very proud of. I worked hard at it. I went through hell through it. And that's something to be proud of. And anything, I mean, every award that I have that's sitting around me, anything that I won, dance competitions, I can charter a 40-foot sailboat. These were all things that it was like, yeah, okay, whatever. They just feel sorry for me. I mean, this is the weird stuff we think. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. You don't need evidence for your worth. Your worth is because you're here. You have always been worthy, regardless of what people have said. And believe me, I know that I was told I was unworthy my whole life. But I'm worthy, and I have been, and I'm really stepping into that. And it's not an easy thing to step into. But I would recommend doing the work, putting everything down. And what I want to do now is I want you to go ahead and take out a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle. On the left, I want you to write what this achievement was supposed to prove. And on the right, write what it actually gave me. I'm not going to ask you to fill it in now, but when you have time where you're in your quiet place, take 5 minutes and fill out both sides honestly. I don't want you to edit it, and I don't want you to minimize what you achieved. When you're done, look at both columns and ask yourself if there is a gap. And if there is, what were you actually chasing? And just be honest with yourself on that, because this is about you. This is about you coming back to the wholeness of you, for you to accept you, for the grandest person that you are, because you are magnificent. Even if you don't think you are, you are. We all are. And we just have to remember that. So right now, I invite you to close your eyes and place your hand on your heart. And bring to mind one thing that you've achieved, that you're proud of. And instead of asking what it proved, just let yourself feel it. Not as evidence, as experience. And say quietly to yourself, I do not have to earn my place here. I already have one. My worth was never in question. Now take a breath in and out. And open your eyes when you're ready. This is week 1 of Why Achievements Stop Feeling Good. Next week, we ask an even harder question. What happens when the life you built doesn't feel like yours anymore? Please subscribe so you don't miss it, and share this with the woman in your life who's still chasing the next goal to feel like enough. I want to invite you to come into the I Am the Light Sanctuary for free for 7 days. Check it out. Check out the permission slips, all the different classrooms in there. And if it's a fit, I invite you to join. And if not, I want to thank you for stopping by, and I wish you well. This is simply an invitation, and the link will be in the show notes. I am Kathleen Flanagan, and you don't have to carry this alone.